Hello children, glad to meet you all again. Today we are going to deal with grammar. But before I introduce the topic to you, I want all of you to guess what it is going to be with the hint that I'm going to give you now. Learning grammar is fun. Now I want you to communicate what I said now to one of your friends or to one of your family members. Now how will you do that? Think about it. How can you tell them? Yes, correct children. Now you can either repeat what I said or you can report what I said. So when you repeat, what happens? You use the exact words of the speaker. That is, I said, learning grammar is fun. So you use the exact words. Otherwise, when you report it, you don't use the exact words, but anyway, you convey the message to the listener, right? So these are the two ways. The first way is direct speech and the second way is indirect speech. So what are we going to learn today, children? Yes, reported speech. What did I ask you to convey? What was that sentence? Teacher said, learning grammar is fun, right? So this is what I told. So when you use the exact words of the speaker, this is how you will have to write. So this is known as direct speech. Here, when we are using the exact words of the speaker, we write it within inverted commas, right? And the other way, where you report it. So what do? Teacher said. So we take this comma and we are also not going to use these inverted commas. So I'm adding a linker here, which is otherwise known as conjunction. Teacher said that. Here you will have to remember one thing. It is in capital letter, but when you write it in the reported speech, that will become small letter. Learning grammar was fun. So here the message is the same, however, but we are not using the exact words of the speaker. So what is the difference between these two? What are the words that are added extra or what is the word that is replaced by some other word? Yes, children. I have added this extra and this is has become was here, right? Very good. So when you are reporting, the tense of the reported words change and you also add a linker there, right? And this one, this said, is known as reporting verb. This is very important. So this is called as reporting verb. So this is the word that is going to introduce the reported words. So the rest are known as reported words. Now, to understand what kind of a reporting verb we are going to use and what kind of a tense change happens there when we are reporting it, we will have to understand certain rules. So that is what we are going to learn now. So the first one is kinds of sentence. You will have to understand the kinds of sentence. First of all, what is a sentence? Group of words that make complete sense. So that is what is known as sentence, right? So there are 4 kinds of sentences that we will have to understand in order to use the correct reporting verbs. Okay, the first one is declarative sentence. And the second one is interrogative, and the third one is imperative, and the fourth one is exclamatory. Good children. Now what is a declarative sentence? These are statements. Here we state facts, opinion. Okay. So this ends with a full stop. I will write it here. Okay. So this ends with a full stop. And what is an interrogative sentence? interrogative sentences or questions. They ask questions to obtain answer, to obtain some information, right? So when we think about questions, there are two types of questions. One is WH question and the other one is yes or no type questions, where we use auxiliary verbs. Now look at this. So what are the WH words that we have? What, when, where, which, who, whom, why, how far, how long, how many, how much. So these are WH question words. So when you ask questions using a WH word, then the answer would be in a sentence. And the other type, yes or no type. So for that, you will have to know what are auxiliary verb. We all know that verbs divided into main verb and auxiliary verb. And when it comes to auxiliary verb, it is again divided into primary and modals. So in primary, we have be form of verb, do form of verb, have form of verb. In be form, we have am, is, or, was, were. And in do form, we have does, do, did. And in the have form, we have has, have, had. And modals, shall, should, will, would, may, might, can, could, must, ought to, need, dare to, used to. So when you have a question that begins with one of these auxiliary verbs, be it auxiliary verb in the primary form or in the modal form, your answer would be either yes or no, right? So these are the two type of questions, WH question and yes or no type question. You will have to keep this in your mind because it is according to that we are going to use a linker. So remember that. So interrogative questions, these are just questions, okay? And there are two types of questions. And this ends with a question mark. Good children. And then the imperative sentence. What are imperative sentences? They are commands, requests, suggestions, orders, whatever. So when you command somebody to do something, when you are bossing around, so those kind of sentences are known as imperative sentences. Mostly imperative sentences will not have a subject, okay? It uses the base form of verb to introduce a sentence. And most of the imperative sentences ends with full stop only. But when an imperative sentence is talking about comments that is really forced and very angry, it may also end with an exclamation mark. And then comes exclamatory sentence. Here, in these type of sentences, we express our strong emotions, feelings like happiness or sadness, anger, joy, or whatever. So those kind of sentences are known as exclamatory sentence, and that ends with exclamatory mark. Okay. Now you are clear with these type of sentences, children. Now I'm going to write a few sentences here. Now you will have to identify what type of a sentence. Now what is the first sentence? I am a teacher. So what type of a sentence is that? Good children. Declarative sentence. So one more thing, declarative sentence can be positive and negative. If it is a positive sentence, it is also called as assertive. And if it is a negative sentence, negative sentence. Okay. Now, is it in positive case or in negative case? Yes, I am a teacher is in positive. Okay. If I have to change it into negative, I am not a teacher. If I add, that becomes negative. Fine. Now, hooray, we are going out. So what type of a sentence is this? Exclamatory sentence. The third one is don't speak loudly. So what type of a sentence is this? Imperative. And the fourth one is why are you late? Here I have used a question mark. Why are you late? So what type of a sentence is this? Good. Interrogative sentence. And what type of a question? WH question. Now you will have to match these. I have types of sentences here and a few 4 sentences on the other side. Now try matching it. Why don't you try speaking in English? So what type of a sentence? Interrogative. Good. Wear your face mask when you go out. So this one is imperative. Very good, children. How exciting the English classes are. So this is exclamatory. Very good. We love to learn English. So this is declarative. Now I have 10 sentences. You will have to identify the types here. How well she sings. Yes, exclamatory. What is your name? Interrogative. Did I say anything to make you angry? Again, interrogative, and it is yes or no type question. Good. What is your name? Interrogative. How ridiculous is this? Exclamatory. Fetch me a glass of water. So this is imperative. It is raining cats and dogs. What type of a sentence? Declarative. Very good. I want to become a writer. So this is also a declarative sentence. She does not eat meat or fish, which is again a declarative sentence. And then finally, go at once. So this is an imperative sentence. Very good, children. So now to change direct sentence into indirect, these things we will have to remember. So I told you about linkers and reporting verbs, right? So for that we will have to do this. So for a declarative sentence, when you are given a sentence and you are asked to convert that sentence into indirect, the first thing that you will have to look at is the reporting verb. And the second thing, what kind of a sentence is that? Okay, so if it is a declarative sentence, the linker that you are going to use is that. Okay, and if it is an interrogative sentence, remember there are two types of questions, right? So the linker would be same WH question word if it is a WH question, and if it is a yes or no question, you will have to use if or whether. You can either use if or whether, but I prefer if, because whether you will get confused with the other whether. WEATHER, WHETHER, right? So that confusion may arise, so I ask you to use if. So WH, the same WH question word, if it is a WH question, and if it is a yes or no question, use if. And for the imperative sentence, to or not to. So if it is a positive sentence, use to, and if it is a negative sentence, not to. So when we change these, actually when we see it with an example, you will understand it better. And for the exclamatory sentence, the linker is that. Okay, and the reporting verbs would be, if it is a declarative sentence, use said commonly. Otherwise, if you have said to, that always becomes told. So you can also use told. Okay, here these are known as reporting verbs. And for the interrogative, we are asking questions them, right? So you can use asked, or you can also use wanted to know. Okay, and if it is an imperative sentence, you will have to, what kind of a sentence is known as imperative? It has commands, request, suggestion, order, right? So the same you can use. So look at the sentence, understand the tone of the sentence, accordingly you will have to use the reporting verb. If it is a command, you can say commanded, ordered, or requested, or suggested. So depends upon the tone of the sentence. And if it is an exclamatory sentence, the linker is that. Okay, and the reporting verb would be exclaimed. So these are also exclamatory sentences, are also statement but with a stronger emotion. So that is why we are using the same linker here, that. Okay, so here we don't have emotions and feelings, here we do have that stronger emotions and feelings. So that is the main difference between these two. Now, the first example that I gave you, learning grammar is fun, I said, right? So this is in direct speech. Teacher said. So now you can understand. Well, first, look at the reporting verb. It has said. It does not have said to. So we can have the same reporting verb here. Teacher said. And the linker, what type of a sentence? Learning grammar is fun. Declarative sentence. So the linker would be that. And write the same thing. Learning grammar was fun. Now we know why we use this, why we use this. Now we do not know why we are changing that tense there. So that is what we are going to see now. So when you change direct speech into indirect speech, the simple present tense becomes simple past. Present continuous tense becomes past continuous tense. Present perfect tense becomes past perfect tense. Present perfect continuous becomes past perfect continuous. And simple past into past perfect, or you can also retain the same tense, simple past. And past continuous into past perfect continuous. Will and shall will become would, should will become would, can, could, may, might, must will become either must or had to, would have to. If it is an obligation, you will have to change it into had to. And when we are referring to future action, we will have to use would have to. And needn't become needn't, it can remain the same, or didn't have to when we are talking about past, and wouldn't have to when we are talking about future. So this is the changes that happen when it comes to tenses. Similarly, when we are talking about universal truths, it does not change. There is no change in the tense because it remains the same forever. So we are not changing the tense. And when we are the reporting verb, if that reporting verb is in present tense or in future tense, there will not be any change in the tense in the reported words. Say for example, I write the same sentence here. Teacher says, or teacher will say. Okay. Learning grammar is fun. So when we are changing it into indirect, we have to retain the same tense. Says or will say. Learning grammar is fun. Now do you understand this? Yes. So if it is a universal truth, or if the reporting verb is in present tense or in future tense, the tense does not change in the reported words. And would remains the same, would. Had better, same, had better. If clause, if you have a if clause sentence in present tense, that changes into past tense. In the direct speech, they've given you if clause and past tense, then that remains the same. And time clauses, there are no changes in the tense. Might becomes same, might, could, ought to, used, used to. Same only. Okay. So now are you clear with these children? Now when you do it with the example, it will make sense to you. You will understand it better. Now there are also changes in the pronoun. If you have I as a subject, that becomes he or she according to the gender of the sentence. And if you have you, that becomes I, she, he or we or they. Depends on the sentence that we have. And we becomes they if it is a subject pronoun. And when it is an object pronouns, me changes into him, her. You changes into him, her, us, them. And us changes into them. And if it is a possessive adjective, my is into his or her. Your changes into my, his, her, our, their. And possessive pronouns, mine will become his or hers. Yours will become mine, his, hers, ours or their. And ours will become theirs. So similarly, certain adjectives and adverbs. So today becomes that day, now becomes then, yesterday becomes the day before, days ago becomes days before, last week the week before, next year the following year, tomorrow becomes the next day or the following day, here becomes there, this becomes that, these becomes those, ago becomes previously or before, and tonight becomes that night, so far becomes till then. Now these charts, if you remember very well, changing a sentence from direct to indirect will become easy. The changes that happens in tenses and in the adjectives, adverbs and in the pronouns. So these are the things that you will have to remember. Okay children, now look at this sentence. Madan said to Jim, I will come next year. Now when you change it into indirect speech, Madan said to always becomes what? Told. Good. So Madan told Jim. Remember, you will have to know what type of a sentence is this. So what type of a sentence? I will come next year. It's a declarative sentence. So what would be the linker that I will have to use here? Yes, that. Madan told Jim that I will come next year. So this pronoun will have to change into what? I will become. So here this I, look at this sentence. Madan said to Jim. So Madan is a masculine gender and Jim is also a masculine gender, right? So Madan is telling something to Jim. So who is coming next year? Madan is coming. So what is the pronoun for that? That he, and will becomes what? Would come next year. So next year will become the following year. So this is how we will have to convert a sentence from direct into indirect. Madan told Jim that he would come the following year. So what changes have we made here? And here we have added a linker. This pronoun is changed and the tense is changed, and here this is also changed. Now look at these sentences. He said, don't play in the ground. So what type of a sentence is this? Imperative. So when you change it, he said, imperative sentence, I told you the linker that you are going to use is to or not to. If it is a positive sentence, you are going to use to, and if it is a negative sentence, you are going to use not to. Now look at this sentence. Don't play in the ground. Is it a positive sentence or a negative sentence? They are asking them not to play in the ground. So it is in the negative case. So what kind of a linker should I use? To or not to? Good, not to. He said not to play in the ground. So when it comes to imperative sentence, it is very easy. You are only going to use to or not to. The rest will remain the same because you are not going to change the tense because it is preceded by to. So when you have to, the following verb should be in the present form. So it becomes very easy if it is an imperative sentence. And here I have used the same word, said. If you want, you can also change into ordered or requested. So it could be in any way. He might have ordered or he might have requested. So the next sentence is, he said, bravo, you are right. So what type of a sentence is this? Exclamatory sentence. Very good. So here you can either retain the same or you can use he exclaimed. And what is the linker? These kind of interjections, okay, you will have to remove when you are changing into indirect speech. So what is the linker that we will have to use? That. He exclaimed that you are right. He said to whom is not given in the sentence. So it could be directly to you or to somebody else. So you can use either he exclaimed that, I, or he or she. You could use any pronoun. So here I assume that it is he. So he exclaimed that. So this pronoun becomes he. Here he exclaimed that he, and this are. Since this pronoun is you, it is followed by are, and I am changing this pronoun into he. So what is, you will have to change this are into past tense. Since it is preceded by he, you will have to use was. He was right. Good. And then he said to him. Now remember, said to. When you have said to, it changes into told. Very good. He told him, I like to listen to music. So this is a declarative sentence. So the linker would be that. He told him that. Here again we do have him. So it is a masculine gender. So that becomes, this I becomes he. He told him that he. And this tense, it is in present tense, so it has to be changed into past tense, that he liked to listen to music. That's all. And the last sentence is, he said, did you finish your homework? So what type of a question? Yes or no type. So here you can either use the same or you can also use asked. He said or he asked if, and this is in past tense. Did you finish your homework? So if it is in past tense, you will have to change it into past perfect tense. And the formula for that is had plus past participle form of the verb. He asked if he had finished. So your becomes his homework. So he asked if he had finished his homework. Now do you understand, children? If you find it difficult to figure out the tense and what it has to be changed to, I'll give you a chart here. This will help you out. Direct, indirect. Forget about the tense. So if you have is or am, that becomes was. If you have are, that becomes were. If you have has or have, that becomes had. Okay, you don't have to remember present tense into past tense into past perfect tense. So remember these words, remember the verbs, that will help you. And do and does becomes did. And if you have a verb which is already in past tense, like we have seen in the fourth sentence, this is already in past tense, right? So like played, they've given you played. I played in the ground. So that is the sentence in direct speech. So in that case, you will have to add had. Had played. So if it is already in past tense, it becomes past perfect tense. And then will becomes would, shall again becomes would. Should you can use if it is an advice. Otherwise, shall becomes would. And can becomes could, may becomes might. Try remembering this alone, that will help you out, children. We'll meet you all in the next session with some more examples. Thank you, children.